Tonight, we see if last week's winner can turn his $500 winnings into $1,000. It's time to play Prop Quiz. Good evening and welcome to Prop Quiz. We've got a great show for you tonight with the return of last week's champion, Mike Jesch, who dominated the board with 165 points and went home with our $500 cash prize. He's back tonight to try and defend his title and turn that $500 into a cool $1,000. But to do that, he's going to need to prove that he knows more aviation trivia than our other two contestants tonight. So let's meet them. Michael Forseth is a flight instructor and the owner of Pilot Rise Flight School in Fort Worth, Texas. Nathan Murphy is also a flight instructor, but with a twist. He played in season 26 of Jeopardy, so he's no stranger to game shows. Both of these pilots are here to literally give Mike Jesch a run for his money. So, Mike, how are you feeling? You think you can beat these guys?
I got a pretty good feeling about this tonight, Ethan.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, welcome back. Let's get started with round one. Gentlemen, here is your first question. What class of airspace exists above flight level 600? Michael.
Class E.
It is Class
Class
E.
Echo.
That is correct. There are your first 10 points, and you're the first contestant on the board tonight in Prop Quiz. Michael Forseth, welcome from Pilot Rise to Prop Quiz. How are you doing tonight?
Pretty good. A little nervous.
Good.
I think I'm going to guess.
You're going to guess? So how do you think you're going to stack up against Mike? 165 points. That's how well he did last night. Does that make you nervous, or you think you're going to beat that?
I think I have a chance of beating it, but if I get anything close, think of where I'll be in 20 years.
Well, hey, that's a good outlook on it. Well, Michael, welcome. We're going to move on to our second question now. You experience a total loss of power during your initial takeoff climb. What should be your very first action? Nathan.
Nose down for airspeed.
Nose down for airspeed. Pitch down, lower in the nose. Close that angle of attack. Keep your airspeed up. Pitch for best glide. You absolutely want to keep your airspeed up. That is the absolute most critical thing to do. If you lose thrust, especially on takeoff, you don't want to stall. So, Nathan, welcome to Prop Quiz. Now, you were on Jeopardy. Tell us about that. That's pretty cool.
Boy, you talk about your once-in-a-lifetime experiences, and literally, because once you played, they don't let you come back. But I was fortunate enough to be invited on the show 11 years ago this fall, and met some amazing people, and had an amazing time, and made a bunch of memories, and also lost, of course.
But at least you got to play, and that's pretty cool.
And,
I'm no Alex Trebek, but I hear he's one of the nicest game show hosts out here. Was he as nice as he seems?
The funny thing is, all we see of him is what you see on television, plus he answers questions from the audience during the breaks. They tape in real time, and they keep him segregated from the contestants. So what you see on screen is what happens. But yes,
I got to be in
nice
a Family Feud audience a couple of years ago, and that was the exact same way because they've got a schedule to keep. Well,
absolutely.
Nathan, welcome to Prop Quiz. Here's our next question for you. This airplane, popularly known as the Spruce Goose, only flew once. Who was the pilot? Mike.
Oh gosh, it is right there. It's I knew this a second ago.
I'm only going to give you about 5 more seconds here. You got it? Nope. All right. Sorry, Nathan.
He was the leader of the company that made it, and he flew it himself, Howard Hughes.
Howard Hughes is the correct answer, but you only got 5 points there because you weren't the first person to buzz in. You are in the lead, though, with 15 points, and that was our third question in the game, so you're already pulling out ahead. When the Cessna 172 debuted with a nose wheel, what catchy name did they come up with for the tricycle landing gear? Mike.
That's the Lando-Matic.
It was the Land-O-Matic. Absolutely correct. Good answer. There's 10 points. You were tied with Michael Forsyth. We got Mike Jesch and Michael Forsyth. Let's see how many times I get you guys backwards tonight.
I promise I'll be confused by the end of the night.
Well, hey, that works then. I won't be alone. Well, this airplane has rolled into a level 45-degree banked turn. How many G's will the pilot feel? Nathan.
1.4.
1.4, good answer, and the correct answer. 25 points is what you're up to now. You've got more than both our other contestants combined. Mike, you better be watching out. I think Nathan's here to win this thing.
I think they're gunning for me.
They're coming for you. They're coming for you. You got your work cut out for you, man. Well, your airplane's ground speed is 90 knots, and you have a 30-knot headwind. How far will you travel in 6 minutes? Nathan.
6 miles.
No. Mike.
6, that is going to be brain fart.
Okay, nope, I'm sorry. That's going to be your time for that. Michael.
What did I don't know. I had it in my head.
All right. Well, it's going to be
the reading
9
comprehension
nautical
award for the night.
miles. 9 nautical miles. And the way you figure that out, your ground speed's at 90 knots. This one's a bit of a trick question. You don't have to worry about that headwind. You already have your ground speed. 90 knots, that's 1.5 nautical miles per minute. So in 6 minutes, you got 9 nautical miles. That's how you work out that answer. You get that one right. But we are still looking at our scoreboard with Nathan out ahead at 25 points. Michael and Mike, both the M's tonight, at 10 points. Let's take a look at our next question, gentlemen. In 1999, John F. Kennedy Jr. crashed into the Atlantic Ocean near Martha's Vineyard. What model of airplane was he flying? Mike.
I believe that was a Piper. I want to say a Saratoga.
You're right. You want to say it, and you are right. It is a Piper Saratoga. You're up to 20 points, so there you are. Now you're catching up. You're catching up to Nathan here. Nathan's starting to sweat. That's a good thing. We want to see that. Who was the private citizen who, until recently, flew his own Boeing 707 from a private airport near Ocala, Florida? Mike.
That'd be Captain John Travolta.
John Travolta, absolutely. He had his own formerly Qantas 707, and right now he's donating it to a museum back in Australia, so they're working to get that plane back home. All right, we're doing great so far. We're only 8 minutes into the show tonight. Mike Jesch has reclaimed his lead, 5 points ahead of Nathan so far, and Michael Forsyth is at 10 points. I'm trying to say the last names here if I can remember them, because we got similar names tonight, Mike and Michael. Well, speaking of getting wording exact here, inexact wording, what does the acronym OROCA stand for? Nathan.
This is an off-route obstacle clearance altitude.
Off-route obstacle clearance altitude? No. Mike.
So close, it's an off-route obstruction clearance altitude.
Absolutely right. Very, very, very close. I'm going to try and stop saying absolutely because I can hear them screaming in my ear. But you got it correct. It is obstruction. We're looking for that word. That's why I said exact wording there. Think of it like the maximum elevation figure for VFR pilots on a sectional. Right. It's sort of the IFR version of that to make sure you don't hit anything. The airplane known as the Piper Aztec, we like Pipers this evening, evolved from an earlier PA-23. What was it called? Mike again.
I think that was the Apache.
It is a Piper Apache. You're now at 45 points. Look at you. Look at you. You were behind the first few questions of this game, and look at that. You're almost doubling everybody else's points already. This blonde villainess flew up. No, not at all. You're doing great, man. This blonde villainess flew a Piper Cherokee and a Lockheed Jetstar in the movie Goldfinger. What was her name? right, it doesn't look like anybody knows it. Going once, going twice. Sold to the know-it-all host, who has it right here on the screen in front of him. The actress's name was Honor Blackman. Her character's name was, and they're telling me I have to say this out loud, it was Pussy Galore, was the character's name in Goldfinger back in the Sean Connery days of James Bond. Way back then. I say way back then. I guess in reality it wasn't that long ago, but still. The original Bond. What condition is normally associated with the cumulus stage of a thunderstorm? Nathan.
Continuous updraft.
Continuous updraft? Correct answer. Good job. You're up to 35 points. You and Mike, you guys are just going to be at each other all night, aren't you? It's a good thing we have you guys separated. Well, this is a Douglas A4 attack aircraft, and it has a name that some people might associate with a Cessna. What would that name be? Mike.
That's the A4 Skyhawk.
It is a Skyhawk. It absolutely is. There I go saying that A word again, and it's not even a bad A word. But you're up to 55 points. You're doing better at this point in the game than you were last week.
Oh,
On a surface analysis charts, gray lines connect points of equal barometric pressure. What are these lines called? Mike.
Those are isobars.
Isobars. Good answer. Isobars. All right, guys, we're going to go into our last question of round one. Here you go. You may have learned about the Garmin G1000 from this man. Today's his birthday. What's his name? Mike again.
That's my friend Max Trescott.
That is Max Trescott. Happy birthday, Max, from us to you. And fantastic job so far to Mike Jesch again as he ends round one ahead with 75 points. We're going to take a quick break and come back with round two. Don't go anywhere.
For many pilots, airspaces remain a confusing concept. These are 3D volumes of air that you have to interpret by looking at a flat sectional chart. It can be a real challenge. You need to master them, and the FAA definitely puts heavy emphasis on them for the written test. But no worries, Gold Seal makes airspaces easy to understand using stunning three-dimensional graphics. And these are the exact ones that you'll see on your knowledge test. You don't have to imagine them. Gold Seal shows them to you in awesome real-world perspective. Gold Seal is the premier online ground school. We've been doing it longer than anyone else. Come see for yourself with a free test drive at groundschool.com.
Welcome back to PropQuiz. I'm going to take my hand at being a news anchor here for a minute and break the news that Air Force Two, currently carrying the Vice President, has had to make an emergency landing after a severe bird strike, leaving New Hampshire a few minutes ago. But back here inside our game, let's take a look at our scoreboard. We ended round one with Mike Jesch again in the lead with 75 points. Behind him is Nathan with 35 and Michael Forseth with 10. But there's more than enough time for everybody to catch up as we enter our second round and go from free-form answers to multiple choice. Remember, you can play along with us in round two by watching on our website at onlinegroundschool.com/PropQuiz. Click watch live and enter your name in the chat box to play along. As for our contestants, they're ready to go again, so let's get started. Here is the first multiple choice question. In 1929, the first zero visibility instrument approach and landing was made. Who was the pilot? A. Dan Aykroyd, B. Glenn Curtis, C. Jimmy Doolittle, or D. Waldo Pepper? Alrighty, the first person to answer was Nathan, so we're going to start our reveal with you. You said C, Jimmy Doolittle. You're correct. There's 45 points on the scoreboard for you now, getting all 10 points from that question. Mike Jesch also said Jimmy Doolittle, giving him 5 points, but he's still in the lead, up to 80. We didn't get an answer from for Michael Forseth on that one. So we're going to go ahead and move on. But any of those at home who thought that it was Dan Aykroyd, he was an SNL and Ghostbusters, and Glenn Curtis was the founder of the Curtis Airplane and Motor Company, now part of Curtiss-Wright Aviation. Let's take a look at our next question. In a Cessna 152 power-off glide, all other things equal, which configuration will provide the longest glide distance? A, a stopped prop, B, a windmilling prop, C, an idling prop, or D, a dynamic prop? All right, Nathan answered first again, so we're going to take his answer first. He said C, an idling prop. You're correct, Nathan, because the engine is still producing a little bit of power. It's still turning, so an idling prop is the right answer. Next, we're going to take a look at Mike Jesch, who said A. I'm afraid it is not. It is not A, nope. And lastly, Michael Forseth said A as well. It's not. With a stopped prop, you can't feather it in a Cessna 172, so it's causing wind resistance as it's sitting there. A windmilling prop, the wind is just moving it around. A dynamic prop doesn't even exist, so no, it is an idling prop. You're still getting just a little bit of power out of that engine as it is still indeed turning. Let's continue on. An air mass pushed over a mountain range rises. What is the name for this type of forced lifting? A, geodynamic, B, orographic, C, terrestrial, or D, orthogonal? Nathan is really going for these 10-point answers here. He answered first again and said B, orographic. That is the correct answer. He's up to 65 points now. He's trying to catch up to Mike Jesch, who's up to 80. Mike, speaking of, said B, orographic as well. He's also correct. He gets 5 points there. And Michael Forseth said C. I'm afraid it is not C, Michael. I'm sorry. No. All right, let's keep on going. Keep chugging through these. The B-24 flew more missions than any other U.S. heavy bomber in World War II. I can't speak. What was it known as? A, the Mitchell, B, the Lancaster, C, the Liberator, or D, the Flying Fortress? Alrighty, it looks like the first person to answer was again Nathan, but Nathan said A, which was not the right answer. Mike chimed in, then he said C, the Liberator, which is correct, giving him 90 points. That's where he is up to now. Yeah, there you go, exactly. Celebrate. You're earning these 90 points. You're not far from hearing your 100-point jingle again. That's right. And do we have an answer from Michael on this question? Doesn't look like it, so we're going to move on to our next question. Michael, don't wait too long, man. If you're not sure what it is, just hit a button. Take a wild guess. Do what I did to get through high school.
I'm not getting any buttons.
Who was the first woman to break the sound barrier? A, Jackie Cochran, B, Casey Anthony, C, Lisa Lupner, or D, Sally Ride? All right, Mike Jesch answered first this time. He said A, Jackie Cochran. That is the correct answer, and there is your 100-point jingle. There you go. Woo! It was Jackie Cochran. Nathan said A, Jackie Cochran as well. He is now up to 70 points with that. And Michael Forseth said C. It is not C. Let's see. Michael, who was that? What was that answer? You said... Who was C?
I don't even know. I was just picking one.
You're just picking an answer. Well, no, Lisa Lupner was an SNL character played by Gilda Radner. And, of course, Casey Anthony. We all remember the Casey Anthony trials from, geez, it's hard to think that was about a decade ago already. Let's keep going. We're knocking these out. It's less than 20 minutes into the show already, and we're already deep into round two. You guys are killing it. In aviation weather reports, what is the abbreviation for hail? A, GL, B, GR, C, HL, or D, HG? righty. What is the abbreviation for hail? Nathan punched in first. He said C, but it wasn't C. It's not. Now we're going to take a look at our next contestant, Michael, who said B, G-R. He's right. There, Michael is now up to 15 points. And Mike, however, he also is getting 5 points because he also answered BGR. The way I like to think about it, these abbreviations are French, but they come from French words, by the way. But the way I like to think about it, help you remember, GR, think of gravel. Hail's like gravel dropping out of the sky, except it's made of, water. So, and arguably, it probably hurts more when it hits you. Guys, this is a pretty nice airplane. But what is it? A, a Lockheed Lodestar, B, an Embraer Brasilia, C, a Gulfstream 1, or D, a Convair 100? Alrighty. Let's see how we did on this one. We're not seeing everybody getting these answers right like we did last week. We saw a lot of those, but not so much this time. Nathan said D.
No idea.
It's not D. Not D. We're going to go on to Mike Jesch, who said C, Gulfstream 1, and he's right. He's absolutely right, giving him 110 points on the board. Now he's the only contestant so far with triple-digit points, and Michael Forseth said D as well. Michael, you and Nathan are thinking alike here, but unfortunately that's just not it. Not it. No, it is a Gulfstream. The Convair 100, if I'm not mistaken, didn't even exist. In a temperature inversion, if a temperature inversion is encountered immediately after takeoff, a potential hazard exists due to what? A, icing, B, wind shear, C, strong surface winds, or D, convective currents. Alrighty, Nathan is back to answering first again, and he's back on the ball, getting the answer right. B, wind shear. It is a hazard due to wind shear. Mike Jesch also said wind shear. And look at you guys making me look like I've got my foot in my mouth, because as soon as I said nobody is getting them all right, we get them all right. Michael, there's B. First time that we've cleared the board with everybody getting the answer right in this episode so far, but good job, you guys. If we take a look at our scoreboard real quick, we've got Michael again in the lead with 115 points, Nathan with 80, and Michael Forseth with 20 as we go into our next question. Which word most closely relates to transponder squawk codes? A, binary, B, hexadecimal, C, decimal, or D, octal? Alrighty, we're going to start with Nathan, who answered first, and he said octal. He's right, as he's been many times in the episode so far, because it goes 0 to 7, and that's 8 digits, or oct, just like an octagon. Mike Jesch also said D, octal, so he's right as well, and he's now up to 120 points. Didn't get an episode or an answer from Michael Forseth, but Michael, you're a developer. You should have known octal. Come on, man.
Oh, I knew it. I just couldn't press the answer. My phone closed up or something.
Oh, gee. Well, you might want to refresh your browser and try and get back into it that way. We're going to keep going on here to our next question, which is this. With relation to parcels of air, what type of movement does advection describe? A, cyclonic, B, lateral, C, falling, or D, rising? Nathan's answering first again, so we're going to check with him. He said B, lateral, and Nathan, there is your own 100-point jingle. Lateral is the correct answer. Mike Jesch said B, lateral as well. He's still ahead, but Nathan's catching up. And Michael Forseth, you said D. I'm afraid it was not D. No, advection is lateral, whereas convection is vertical. So advection is lateral in this case. Okay, guys, we're starting to wind down. We don't have many questions left. Consider this nav indicator. Where is the aircraft in relation to the station? A, southwest, B, northeast, C, southeast, or D, northwest? righty. Mike Jesch buzzed in this time and said A, Southwest. He is correct. Now we're going to go on to see eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Nathan said A, Southwest as well. And lastly, let's take a look over at Mr. Forseth, who said A again, Southwest. And there's the second time we've cleared the board. Everyone getting the answer right. Right, of course. Speaking of right, we're right, of course, in this image for 210 radial, and we have the from flag. So that's how you get it there. What aerodynamic component is required for an airplane to enter a spin? A, roll, B, yaw, C, acceleration, or D, pitch? Nathan hit his phone first, and he said D. It is not pitch. No, sir. You're still at 105 points there. Mike said B, yaw. He's right. He is right, as he's been most of the episode, as you can clearly tell by his 140-point score. Let's see if he meets or beats his score from last week. And Michael Forseth, you said B as well. Yeah, that is the correct answer. You are now up to 30 points, sir. As we move on to our next question, which is this. This Nazi aircraft was the world's first operational jet fighter. What was its designation? A, the FW-190, B, the ME-262, C, the ME-163, or D, the BF-109? Alrighty, guys, Nathan is first again, and he said B, the ME-262. Here you go. You got it right. You're now up to 115 points. Mike is also right with ME-262. And Michael is unfortunately not. It is not. You got the ME right, but it's 262 in this instance. Sorry about that, man. We got 2 questions left, and here's the first one of them. The amount of water vapor which a parcel of air can hold largely depends on what? Air temperature, B, stability of the air, C, relative humidity, or D, the Coanda coefficient. Nathan, you answered what? You were first and you said A, air temperature. Good answer. You're now up to 125 points. You're only 20 behind Mike, who, by the way, said C, which is not right. No, Mike. I am sorry. Hang your head in shame. Yeah. But don't hang it too much because you're still in the lead. You're by a healthy margin still. And lastly, we did not get an answer from Michael on this one. So no. And for the record, by the way, the Coanda coefficient is just, it doesn't exist. I just like using big words. So if you're tripped up at home by that one because it sounded official, I said coefficient in it. No, it was not. Also,
don't mix it up with the anaconda effect.
The anaconda effect. All right, guys. Your last question in tonight's episode of Prop Quiz. In a skidding turn, the tail moves where? A, counter to the turn. B, inside of the turn. C, 90 degrees to the turn, or D, outside of the turn. Alrighty, Nathan, in our last question, and for the last time, is buzzed in first. He said D, outside of the turn, which is the correct answer. So Nathan, your final score is going to be 135. Good job, man. D is what Mike Jesch answered as well, which gives him a final score of 150. And Michael Forseth got answered D as well, so his final score is 35. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, Mike Jesch, for the second week in a row, is the winner of Prop Quiz with 150 points. That's our time tonight. Congratulations again to Mike for winning our $500 cash prize again. Our next episode is going to be Tuesday, October 6th. Don't miss it. I'm Ethan Berg. Thanks for playing. Good night.